Hello and welcome to Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys. My name is Hunter. In this podcast, I'll be joined by a different guest each week to discuss a classic Western movie or TV show. I've been a fan of classic Westerns for as long as I can remember, and in recent years, they've become very nostalgic for me. I love the aesthetic, the tropes, and I love seeing different filmmakers' takes on them. At their best, they're incredibly entertaining, rewatchable, and some of my all-time favorite movies are Westerns. We'll mostly focus on Western movies made in Hollywood, but we'll also be covering spaghetti Westerns, and one thing I'm very excited to get into are Western TV shows. I've got some amazing guests coming on the show, film professors, historians, and podcasters. And Tumbleweeds and TV Cowboys is part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network, and many guests on the show will be from other shows on the network. Thanks for listening.
We made this.
Jess Byard.
And I'm Chris Stashew.
And we are the hosts of The One Season Show, a podcast where we take a look at TV shows that only lasted one season.
Each month, we'll be tackling several episodes of the show from start to finish. We are continuing our look at the forgotten horror series from Fox's inaugural season, Werewolf.
Eric Cord was just an ordinary college student until he was attacked by his roommate, a werewolf. Now he's running for his life, chased by a bounty hunter for the murder of his cursed friend. In pursuit himself of the evil werewolf Skorzeny, the source of his bloodline, a beast who must die to set Eric free. A race against time and the bloodlust that threatens to overwhelm him. Now, Werewolf, the legend continues.
If you are joining us on our second episode, jump on back, check out the first episode because we talk about the pilot in that episode. This episode, we're going to be talking about episodes 2 through 8. Those episodes are Night Watch, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, The Black Ship, Spectre of the Wolf, The Man Who Thought He Was a Wolf, Nothing Evil in These Woods, and Running with the Pack. Yeah, it's a lot to get through, but not really because each episode is shockingly 23 minutes long, which is the weirdest thing about this show, except it's totally not. There's a lot of weird shit about this show. There's a lot of weird things going on in the Werewolf universe of Werewolf. So let's just get right to it with the first episode that we're going to be talking about, which is Night Watch. It's directed by David Hemmings, written once again by Frank Lupo. It stars kind of the usual suspects: John J. York, Lance LeGault, Denny Miller. We're just going to mention the people that aren't the main players in the show from here on out because otherwise we will just keep talking about the same people over and over again. This episode sees Eric tracking down Skorzeny to a boatyard where he is captured by some sailors who want to turn him over to Alamo Joe for the ransom. This is the first episode where I realized it was 23 minutes and I was like, whoa, that's it?
Well, I mean, it's the second episode after the hour-and-a-half pilot that this show kicked off,
which was technically 2 hours.
Right. I like how their mini housekeeping. We mentioned in the last episode how terrible his girlfriend was, Kelly. And in this episode, they just pretty much start off with Chuck Connors, who plays Skorzeny, Janos Skorzeny. And he just kind of does this I killed her pretty much off screen. I don't know specifically why, if the actress didn't want to come back, if they didn't want her to come back, whatever. But it with as much effort that they put into the first pilot, it's weird that it's so short and so seemingly empty of any real story depth, any depthiness to its actual narrative is kind of missing, at least in the second, and especially as the follow-up episode.
Well, and the weird thing about the girlfriend being killed off screen is she kind of didn't need to be there in the first place because this is ultimately a road show. This is, like we mentioned in the first episode, this is very much The Fugitive. This is very, very much Incredible Hulk for the mid-'80s. And so he doesn't need a girlfriend because he's going to be constantly on the road. I mean, you don't know that obviously going into the second episode, but it's very clear that the whole show is just going to be him on the road going after Skorzeny. I guess, going up and down the coastline because Skorzeny is on a boat?
Right, I guess. And so he's going after Skorzeny, but he's also being followed by
Alamo Joe,
the bounty hunter. And yeah, like you said, this is a road show in that it literally every single one of these episodes is just him in a new town being vigilante wolf.
Yeah. So in this episode you have Grand L. Bush, who is one of the seamen who tries to capture Eric. And look, like, we're just getting into this show's kind of the way it works in this episode. So the farther down the road we get, you're going to kind of see a lot of the same tropes happening. But in this episode, can't find Skorzeny, gets captured, and then he ends up killing the guys who captured him at the end and runs away.
Right.
That's it. Like, that's almost every single one of these episodes is going to be that formula, almost to a T.
And I was reading about the show, and, obviously it only lasted one season. And so I guess it had consistently pretty high ratings. But primarily the reason that it didn't get picked up again was the cost of the transformation. Because they make it a point to have a transformation every single episode.
Now, the funny thing, though, is they reuse the like, kind of the visuals a lot.
Right.
The wolf costume is always the same, and but in a different setting, but they always use kind of the same visuals, which is essentially someone in a dark room and they're close-upping on the werewolf transformation, so you're not really given any kind of idea as to where it's going on, which means they can just reuse it over and over again.
And it's good for 1987.
Sure, and for TV, and for network television.
And for TV, yeah, absolutely. But I don't think that they need a transformation every episode. If it didn't have this formula in where he has to go to a new town or a new wherever and meet somebody, and then they encounter some piece of shit that he then just conveniently happens to be wolfing out for.
There is one or two in this first 7 that we're going to talk about that aren't that, but this one, right out of the gate, Night Watch is pretty formulaic.
Yeah.
And
it's boring.
It's not that it's boring, it's just where it's going. It's pretty obvious.
Right. And for the follow-up episode, which, we both liked the pilot, and if I had been a viewer in 1987, I definitely would have kept watching after the pilot. I don't know if I would have kept watching after this, because sure, we get to see more Alamo Joe, we get to see more Skorzeny, which I love Chuck Connors.
We get to see Henry Beckman, which is cool, who plays Detective Briggs from the X-Files, Tombs and Squeeze episodes, which are 2 of the best episodes of the first season of the show, which was pretty cool, but much else there is not.
No, and this is one that he's basically just trapped on this boat the whole time, too.
Yeah, and again... Like, this being 23 minutes, like, thank God it's only 23 minutes of him trapped on a boat, because we're about to get 2 episodes from now, him trapped on a boat again for 23 minutes.
Which I guess it's just how anytime Skorzeny, because obviously not every episode, they are following the formula of we have our main storyline, but then we also have our quote-unquote monster of the week. That doesn't really...
He is the monster of the week, yeah.
But, new bad guy every week sort of thing.
Bad guy in quotations.
Right. And, yeah, this episode was just kind of like, here's a bit more... any episode that has to do with Skorzeny so far, and the main story is just 23 minutes of exposition.
Exactly.
Because, Chuck Connors wolfing out does look pretty badass. I do enjoy his. But yeah, it's mostly just Eric being captured, Chuck Connors talking at him about, being a werewolf and what all that means, and da-da-da-da-da-da. But sometimes he tries to kill him. Other times it doesn't seem like it's that, like he's trying that hard.
Right. Well, and when we get to the black ship, that becomes very apparent. But
right. We'll move on to...
Yeah, of the 7 we've watched, this one's pretty forgettable. It's not even a very good follow-up to the pilot.
No, I would not have made this the follow-up.
No. So we'll talk about the next episode, which is The Boy Who Cried Werewolf. That episode is directed by Larry Shaw. It is written by written by Mark Jones. The big players in this episode that aren't the usual cast: Cyril O'Reilly, Ann Wyndham, and Danny Cooksey. Ann Wyndham and Danny Cooksey play a mother and son who are being tormented by her boyfriend, and so the werewolf, Eric, gets essentially dropped into a family drama where he is rescued by a young boy who loves monsters, and he ends up having to kill the mom's abusive boyfriend. And that's
right, because conveniently he only kills bad guys.
Right, so he's like the Dexter of werewolves.
Exactly, but he doesn't knowing, and this is what I'm not entirely sure of, and Chuck Connors could exposition this, I guess, but I'm not really sure of the awareness of the werewolf, because when he wakes up, he's always like, oh shit, did I kill someone? I'm so worried about it, and then it almost is that he never, like, it's almost that he never did.
Right.
Like, he only kills people if it's in a situation where it's a bad person attacking him or an innocent person.
He turns into the werewolf when there is a bad person present, and it almost seems like the bad person is just there by happenstance. Like, oh, there's a bad person here. I was going to kill something anyways. Let me just kill this person who also happens to be bad.
But at least with this episode, that it fits more naturally, though. Like, the idea of him meeting this family and her having an abusive boyfriend is that's something that I can totally buy into. Later on, there's a few episodes where I'm like, okay, this is a bit stretching it, but...
Well, and Ann Wyndham and Danny Cooksey are great. Danny Cooksey is a fantastic child actor in this episode. Cyril O'Reilly, Cyril O'Reilly's okay. I mean, he doesn't do much. You'll know Danny Cooksey if you've seen Terminator 2. He plays the friend of, not Sarah, I was going to say Sarah Connor, John Connor, the kid with the red hair. He's great in this episode. But again, it all comes back to, this is a show where one character, we're following them, and they're being put into these different situations, and here's the first one, which is the werewolf comes to save a mother and son. And honestly, I think it works pretty well. I mean, for what it is.
Yeah, this episode I think worked really well. I would have made this the follow-up.
Yeah.
I would have switched these, absolutely. If you would have, go straight into him, escaping from the pilot, he's abandoned his girlfriend basically because he doesn't want her to live this life with him. And he gets dumped into this family drama, and that could kind of, like, relate back, like, his just getting out of a relationship and him, like, finding this family in peril. I would have definitely, I think that would have gone, it just would have flowed a lot better. And then we could have had Night Watch where we get some more Chuck Connors. Or, you know what, you could have just blended Night Watch and Black Ship.
Well, and so here's the thing, and I'm curious your thoughts on this. This is the first episode without Chuck Connors.
Right.
Did you miss not having him? I was kind of relieved that he wasn't there, because I don't want the show to use him.
Have you ever wanted to dive deeper into the horror movies you love? Beyond the Blood is a horror podcast for fans who want more than just surface-level screams. We do deep dives into the movies that shaped us, digging into director commentaries, behind-the-scenes stories, deleted scenes, and the special features that most people skip. Each episode is a love letter to the genre. We break down how these films were made, the creative risks that paid off or didn't, and the lasting impact they've had on the genre as a whole. From 70s slashers to modern nightmares, we celebrate the craft, chaos, and characters that keep us coming back. If you're the kind of fan who rewatches movies with the commentary on, or you simply grew up in the video store horror aisle, the Beyond the Blood podcast was made for you. New episodes every single week. Subscribe, and let's dig deep. Welcome to the Beyond the Blood podcast.
As a crutch.
Yeah, no, it was nice to see that we're going to have, some offshoot stories, and it's not just going to be, Chuck Connors in every episode capturing him or, narrowly escaping whatever, because that would have just been incredibly tedious and repetitive, and this show is already pretty repetitive. But at least when we're getting new people and new situations, even if it is the same sort of situation over and over again, at least there are other characters that pop up.
Here's the other thing you mentioned. So it is getting repetitive. We're on the third episode already. And I don't want to start dragging the show 3 episodes in, but there are 29 episodes in the first season of network television programming.
Yeah.
And
in the 80s.
In the 80s. Like, that is practically, unheard of now. I mean, no show really does. I mean, there are still some shows. I mean, X-Files was
every show
that.
On the CW.
Yeah. Like Supernatural.
Right. 45 episodes a season? Why not?
But here's the thing about this show that before we go to the next episode, we probably should touch on a little bit. The length of these episodes, that works for like a comedic sitcom.
Yeah.
This is a narrative story, and
it's a major hindrance.
Yeah, the Incredible Hulk and the Fugitive both were hour in quotations, 45 minutes with 15 minutes of commercials. They were hour-long narrative storytelling shows. And so, as this show is kind of emulating those shows, it's a little bizarre that they don't give the show the time to breathe, the character of Eric Cord to really kind of start to grow. And it's just kind of weird because it just feels rushed.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And my husband and I were talking about this before we started recording, is that, it's just, like you said, comedic shows that are, looser in narrative, looser in plot, looser in characterization. That's fine. That's a quick, cool, half-hour-long sitcom, in, out, you're good.
One, because sitcoms don't rely on story. They're just...
No, because it's a new thing
Yeah, it's telling jokes and, just a little bit of narrative.
Some carryover.
Yeah, but it's mainly about the jokes and the comedy.
But we're supposed to be following this guy who's dealing with the fact that he is now a werewolf and being hunted for murder and being hunted by a crazy werewolf. And pretty much every episode is him just being a little bit, sad about it.
Wistful?
But he's wistful. Yeah, I guess he's a little broody. That's, But every time it's right as the show starts to get going, it's over. It's like, boom, there.
I'm glad you mentioned that because that's exactly what it is. It's like a ball rolling down the hill and then it hits a wall. And then the ball moves to the left a little bit, starts rolling again and hits a wall. It's like, oh my God. This is the way this show's going to be, so I can't really say we're going to complain about it from here on out. But that is something
But that's where we're seeing this.
Exactly. This is the first time we're really digging into these episodes. And I know you knew they were 20 minutes going into it. I didn't. I just kind of watched the second episode and was like, holy shit, that's it. Third episode. And it's not that it's a hindrance to the show so much as it's just kind of a strange choice.
It's a hindrance to the story, I think, for sure. It doesn't give the characters any time to do anything.
Right. It's a hindrance to the story, not to the show. If, the order was 29 episodes, that's the way it is.
And I understand, not spending a lot of time with the random groups of people that he's running into. And, we don't need super long episodes for that because all these people are just kind of in and out in one episode. But I imagine that they're going to at least introduce probably one or two more characters that are going to be in the show more often. I gotta think in 29 episodes they're gonna do that. I hope, but who knows? But
you would hope so?
Yeah, we're not getting it. I don't care about the side characters. I don't need elaborate backstories on them. I get them. I understand what they're there for. But if it's just going to be him walking around doing just this stuff and never making any progress in what he's trying to, reconcile with, and I'm sure that there will be. There has to be some kind of resolution that he's working towards.
So let's talk about the next episode. Speaking of things he's working towards, this is the second appearance now of Skorzeny. This is The Black Ship. It's directed by James Darren, written by Alan Cole and Chris Bunch, who will go on to write a handful of the episodes of this show. The big standout in this episode is Stefan Girosh, who plays Otto Renfield, a friend of Skorzeny who traps Eric on his ship so that he can get back in the good graces of Skorzeny by allowing Skorzeny to come and kill Eric. Again, this is back to, like we said, with Night Watch. This is a 23-minute episode trapped on a ship. But you get some really interesting back and forth with Stefan Girosh and Eric Cord, which is great. Because John J. York is a good actor. Stefan Girosh is a great actor, so...
John J. York has his moments. There's especially... I'm sure as we go on, he'll get better, but in the first few episodes, there are some noticeable you're stiff, you're not emoting with your face in any way, and I don't know how to take you. One credit note that I wanted to mention, and it's purely just because I love the name, but Claude Earl Jones. Did you see that?
Yeah, Claude. Good old
Claude Earl Jones. James Earl Jones, long lost brother.
But I think it's a pretty good episode.
I like it. You know what's weird about it, though? And I didn't mention this in the first, about the second episode, Night Watch. But the second episode, Night Watch, continues on the trend of the overbearing electric guitar playing over everybody and what they're talking about. It cracks me up. I love it.
The theme for this show and the score is perfectly 80s, but also overbearingly 80s.
It's just somebody doesn't know how to sound mix right. Like they were we're just going to make the music the same exact volume as the people talking. But in this episode, the first 3 minutes of it is almost devoid of music. It's weird. He goes to that bar, but it's very little music. And I noticed that as we go on in these episodes, I'm not really hearing that electric guitar anymore. So I'm wondering if that, is just not going to keep going, which, I mean, I kind of miss it. I liked it.
I assume that the Renfield last name of the character is a nod to Dracula?
So I was wondering, I was thinking, was this show always supposed to be about werewolves?
Well, I mean, Or
was it maybe supposed to be about vampires, and then people went, werewolves instead, and then they just kind of...
I think it always was werewolves because they already had Dark Shadows, which was the vampire show.
That's true. That's true, but yeah, I don't know. I
think it's just
the Renfield name is silly to me, but
it's it's a literary thing where they're Renfield for those of you who are literary nerds, But for the 5 people that have claimed to have read Dracula and the one person in the room who actually has,
right?
But the back and forth between Renfield and Eric Cord is really good because Eric Cord ends up turning Renfield to his side. The end of the episode becomes really muddled, and I'm not a huge fan of it because it seems like he escapes, but not really. And when we get towards the end of these 7 episodes, we'll have more to talk about kind of the muddled nature of the editing with this show because it leaves a lot to be desired. But
it really does. Especially in this episode.
Yeah. Well, and even more so in the ones towards the end where there's action going on.
Oh.
This is one of the ones where without quote unquote action, which
this is very much just a talking back and forth. Again, any episode that Chuck Connors is in, it's an exposition episode.
Yeah, and
you're going to start learning about Werewolf and all this stuff, and that's all you're going to learn. And then Chuck Connors will appear for the last 5 minutes, and then he'll escape.
And Jess is not exaggerating. It is probably less than 5 minutes. It is one fucking scene.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm wondering. So I have theories as to why this show is A, only 23 minutes long, and B, why we only see so much Chuck Connors. And if the reason that they didn't pick up a second season is because it was too expensive because of the wolfing out every episode, then I imagine that these episodes being so short has to do with budget, and that only having Chuck Connors available for the minimal amount of time that you could afford to have Chuck Connors, because arguably he's the biggest name in this.
Right. Oh, he completely is. And that's
the time. I mean, still now, I mean, he's bigger. People wouldn't be more inclined to recognize Chuck Connors than they are John J. York.
Right. Oh, I completely agree. Chuck Connors is the selling point for this show. It had to have been when Frank Lupo created and pitched the show as well. So, but let's move on to the next episode, which is Spectre of the Wolf. It is a Chuck Connors-less episode, and the director of the episode is the fantastically named Lyndon Chubbuck. It is written by Craig Tepper, and the kind of the bigger players in this episode are the fantastic Byrne Piven, who plays Dr. Victor de Goethals, who is a college professor who's written a book about werewolves, even though he doesn't believe werewolves, and he gets warned by Alamo Joe that Eric might be in his area, and then Eric goes to convince Dr. de Goethals that he is actually a werewolf.
And here's a problem. I don't like this episode. I didn't enjoy this at all.
Really?
No, I felt that I just didn't understand why any of it was happening. Why is Eric going to speak to this guy? Why? I mean, this...
Just, figure out why he's a werewolf, but at the same time...
But how does he know who he is?
I just happened into the city that he's in, because that seems to be the thing. The bigger issue I have with this episode, and I did actually like this episode, the bigger issue I had with this episode is the idea that we know Eric is a werewolf. There is no question of that. And it's not like they're trying to convince us he's not, but they're trying to convince another character that he is.
Every episode.
Right. And it's this has to stop at some point.
Right. It's that whole idea of waiting to find out
It's the will they won't they of the X-Files. It's the will they won't they of Cheers. It's like, fucking make up your mind.
It's less sexy than X-Files.
or Cheers, or Moonlighting. And it's like, you have to figure out how you're going to get past the fact that at some point you can't just keep going, people don't believe I'm a werewolf. What am I to do? It's like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's like any movie about a ghost, and that you spend half the movie trying to convince the other people in the house that there's a ghost, and then they finally believe you, and then the movie's over.
Yeah, and it's like, okay.
And that's every episode, but condensed into 23 minutes, so I don't know if that's a better thing or a worse thing, but this episode just seemed so unnecessary, because nothing comes of it at all. Like, not...
No, because, and maybe the character of Victor de Gothels will return. That would be kind of interesting. He does the end scene where they're in the MRI room and he's behind the glass and he's watching Eric turn into a werewolf and then he spares him, I thought was interesting. There's a really cool reflection shot with Eric as the werewolf looking into the room where Byrne Piven is. There's a really shitty freeze frame at the end of the episode, which is just, I don't understand the freeze frame thing. Fine, it's an 80s. It's an 80s thing. They have the cool part where he wipes the tape with a defibrillator, which is, again, like...
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, like, he's like, oh, I believe him now. And that's cool.
But that's every episode, and I know we keep saying that, but it is literally, it's just, now I've made you believe me. And now you're not going to tell on me, but that's it. It's really to no end. Like, and this guy, he wrote this book on werewolves because his wife and his child died in a plane crash.
But that had nothing to do with werewolves?
That then got eaten, but the dead bodies got eaten by wolves.
But wolves, just wolves.
Just wolves, just regular wolves in the mountains where the plane crashed because nature. And he decides to then write a cathartic werewolf book? But is it a fiction book, or is it supposed to be like a book of lore? Like, what is it? Stories about werewolves?
It's never made clear what he wrote.
Yeah,
it's called like I think it is. I mean, it is just the name of the episode, "Spectre of the Wolf." Mm-hmm. But it's so weird because you would expect that his motivation for writing the episode's titular book would be he saw a werewolf or his family died in a strange way that maybe was a werewolf. No, it's just this really kind of like throwaway thing where it's like, well, maybe it was werewolves, but it was just wolves. It's like, what?
That was another reason. I was just like, I don't care about this character. I don't care. I just move on. And then the next one is weird too. Which is a different sad old man.
Yeah, so speaking of sad old men, the next episode 6, is the wolf who thought he was a man, which at least David Hemmings is back to direct it.
Yeah, that's true. I somehow skipped this episode today when I was watching them, so I just like kind of hurried up and watched it right before we did this, and it's weird.
It is probably the most bizarre of the episodes we've watched.
I would agree, yeah. Because now we got murders.
Right, so Anthony Macus Sr. plays Hugo, who's like a German descendant of Jägermeisters who lives in a fucking gothic cabin in the woods, and he hunts. Yeah, exactly, and he hunts wolves. And sure. And it's weird. Like, the setup in and of itself is weird because Eric's just invited into this guy's house who just happens to be a wolf hunter.
Right. He picks him up hitchhiking, which this episode does like feel the most like the Hulk.
Oh, yeah.
Hulk at the beginning of it.
Completely. Yeah.
Because it is just almost shot for shot, just him, the same hitchhiking, sort of walking down the street. And yeah, he just gets picked up by this guy and taken to the cabin in the woods, and he turns out to be a creep.
He turns out to be a creep, and then Bobby Eakes plays Margaret, who is kind of the love interest of the episode. This is the first time we've honestly had a love interest since Eric Cord's girlfriend, which I take it or leave it.
And then we get 2 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of take it or leave it. I mean, there is a scene that I'm surprised made it onto 1987 network television where her breasts are effectively hanging out of her bathing suit in a way.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, like this is network television 1987. And it is full on bathing suit, like Rose McGowan from Scream, if you know what I'm getting at. I was like, this is network television. Like, this is a pushing the boundaries a little bit. That's kind of cool. And like, not sign of the times, but like
embracing the horror aspect of it and bringing it.
But then you get this weird episode where there's these other two folks, Tobias Anderson, who plays Ed, and Noel Conlon, who plays Kelly, and Ed dies? Maybe. I couldn't even figure out what the hell was going on.
I can't figure... This is a running theme in this show, is that sometimes I think people are dead, and they're not dead, and then sometimes I don't know what the fuck happened, because, again, editing.
Well, okay, so that's the other thing, and we need to talk about this because, like I said, this is one of the, we got 3 more episodes ahead of us, so we have to kind of get the bigger things out of the way that are clearly going to be continual tropes. Mm-hmm. One of them is going to be slow-mo frame rate when the werewolf is around, and it is, look, the werewolf makeup is really good. The werewolf costume is actually really good. It's not bad, but they take it upon themselves to shoot everything when the werewolf is on screen in probably 30 frames a second or something. Mm-hmm. And it is really bad. It's distracting. And it's honestly, with the fact that we're essentially pulling this show off of YouTube to watch it, these were aired on Chiller, probably in the mid-2000s. We are at a massive hindrance to figure out what in the fuck is happening. And it's not great.
It's something that I noticed in this episode, and especially the next episode.
Oh, the next episode, and then the final episode even more so.
Yeah, I appreciate that this show went that direction, as opposed to movies where it's like you see a transformation and then they wake up the next day and that's it. And you don't even usually see the full transformation. But this show takes it too far because, I don't need to see him walking around and try. In the next episode when we get there, there's a particular scene. It just looks silly. It begins to be distracting, and then you really... Obviously, it's a fake werewolf. Obviously, it's a guy in a costume. We know that. But practical effects look awesome when they are blocked well, lit well, and edited well. They don't look awesome when they're full on, here you can see everything. Well, if we could see everything if it were a different rip, but...
Not in this rip.
No, not in this rip. I mean, if it ever manages to get on Blu-ray outside of rights issues, then we maybe will be able to tell what's going on in those scenes. But yeah, it looks funny, and part of the time, especially in The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, he looks like he's walking like a gorilla.
Yeah, it's really some strange choices were made for this show in regards to the way he kind of acts as a werewolf. This episode has that kind of, now he's just walking on 2 legs.
2 legs, yeah. In The Boy Who Cried Werewolf, he's still they have him okay, well, we want you to walk on all 4s like a wolf, except that it's a man in a suit, so it looks like a gorilla. Because that's how the body moves.
And you're mentioning this because the last 2 episodes, the Black Ship and Spectre the Wolf, they haven't really had the werewolf much.
No.
Spectre the Wolf, he was kind of just at the end. The Black Ship, he's not at all the werewolf. It's more Chuck Connors as the werewolf.
Which I like Chuck Connors' werewolf a lot.
Well, his werewolf has the dark fur and it just looks better.
Yeah, but he's even got the crazy eyes are better.
Sure, well, the crazy eye is the best part of this show. This should just be called Chuck Connors' Crazy Eye, the TV show.
Right.
But with this episode, this is kind of the first time we see the werewolf kind of fighting. And, well, other than The Boy Who Cried Wolf, but that, it wasn't really fighting. He just kind of pushed him out of the way and ran away. And in this, you have actual fighting with a character, with the Anthony Macca Sr. Hugo character, and it is not good. There's a lot of physical limitations to the suit, clearly, which is fine, but maybe they should have had it on all 4s then, like American Werewolf in London.
Right. But then you would need some animatronics, and they already were blowing their budget.
Agreed. I mean, yeah. Again, the budget is clearly the driving factor behind a lot of the limitations here.
Right. And in the next, I guess we can move on to the next. Well, do you know what happened in this episode?
I honestly, I watched it twice and I couldn't figure it out. All I know is he ends up getting away again at the end.
Right.
And Margaret goes, "Don't forget me," and he goes, "I never will." And then we
Except
get to,
he will.
Except he will, because now we're in Nothing Evil in These Woods, which is again directed by David Hemmings. This is the first episode Sidney Ellis writes, and the kind of the big people in this episode are Will McMillan, who plays the sheriff of the town. You'll notice him from such films as The Crazies or The Enforcer, the sequel to Dirty Harry, and Amy Yazbek, who's fantastic. The only thing I recognize her from is The Mask, where she plays the reporter who turns on Jim Carrey.
Wow, I totally didn't even... That is her.
Yeah. So this is a weird episode because Eric meets a witch.
Yeah, it does that thing where it's like, hey, we're in a universe where one supernatural thing exists, so now we maybe introduce other supernatural things.
Yeah,
except
are vampires in the show now too? Is that a thing that's coming up?
But honestly, she says she's a witch, and she says she's a white witch, and sure, she makes a love potion, but
Isn't the love potion is meth?
Well, no, because the cigarettes were laced with crystal, with angel dust. And that's why the guy... Basically, she makes a potion for this girl who likes this boy, and he's not acting, towards her how she wants, so she makes her a love potion, and the boy ends up attacking her, but turns out it's because his cigarettes were laced with angel dust, so then they realize that it's not the potion. So honestly,
but they go to kill her anyways.
She's a person who's a witch in that,
Wiccan
in a spiritual way, yeah. Not in an actual I am a witch with magical powers way.
Well, it definitely seems that way because...
Especially at the end.
Yeah, so this episode feels like Eric is dropped into someone else's story.
Yeah.
Because Amy Yazbek as Deidre, the good witch, is a different character than we're used to in the show, because she feels like a character from a different show.
She seems like it seems like
she would have her own show. Yeah.
It's like Werewolf meets the witch. Here you go.
Which is fine, but at the same time, the way her character is handled in the episode is bizarre.
It's very strange. And I mean, he basically comes upon her, he wakes up, as he does pretty much every episode, after wolfing out. He wakes up naked and he's in the woods, and he finds her because she's playing a flute in the woods, like a fairy or a witch. And he decides, well, hey, you can take me out of the woods. And she says, yeah, that's cool. And then we meet her antagonists in the town, which are a bunch of redneck yokel locals who don't like her because she's a witch. And as the story goes on, and Eric and her become, close, and she's immediately receptive.
As close as you can get in 23 goddamn minutes.
Yes, exactly. And she's immediately receptive to his werewolfism, and, she senses something, and then, she knows it. She wants to help him.
She even tries to cure him at the end.
Yeah, she wants to cure him of the werewolf curse. But because the kid who dies ends up being one of the redneck's one of the redneck's kids, they decide to attack her. And they do it successfully, and I was not expecting that, actually.
Yeah, she dies at the end of the episode, which is...
Yeah, she burns to death in her house.
Yeah, so Eric becomes a werewolf again, as always, at the end. He doesn't kill anyone, he just kind of throws them around, and then but they've already lit her kind of house on fire, and he tries to go save her, but it's too late. Mm-hmm. She's just dead. She stays inside of her hut and burns to death, and he can't save her.
There's no reason she shouldn't have been able to get out.
It was a very weird choice. Because you give him a love interest who could have been a reoccurring character on this show. And
I liked her. I would have liked to see her come back or gone on the road with him.
Yeah, she's a great character for this show. And look, Sydney Ellis has some credits on the A-Team and BJ and the Bear. And, a lot of TV writing credits. He even actually wrote an episode for, shockingly, The Fugitive. And it's weird because you would think he would have a better grasp of this kind of what needs to get done, how we need to tell the story, and what the expectations are. And I guess the idea is, and maybe this was a studio mandate from Fox, but every episode needs to just be a clean slate. A clean slate. A clean slate. Don't have any characters other than Skorzeny and Eric and Alamo Joe, who, by the way, you'll notice we haven't really mentioned him very much because he hasn't done shit this entire show so far.
No, all he does is appear in the town about an hour after Eric does, shows people Eric's picture, and then they deny ever seeing him.
Inspector the Wolf, he was there before.
That's true. And they deny seeing him, or they really haven't seen him, and then he disappears for the rest of the episode until he comes back because, something happened, and then they're like, oh no, still didn't see that guy.
Yeah, okay. It's a bizarre framing device that's used, and again, it also feels very sitcom-y, where it's like, and nothing ends up actually happening. I mean, that's kind of always the joke with The Simpsons, right? Is all these things happen, but then the next episode, they're just back to their old wily ways. And that is how Werewolf feels. It feels like it comes right back to where it was at the beginning.
Yes.
Which, I mean, a 29-minute show or 23-minute show, okay, but still.
And I mean, like we said, when we first watched the pilot and we discussed what other shows were, on the network and similar networks at the time, it does make sense that even if it's not a budget thing, I can see why they tried to go with a short show, because that was how most shows were then. Because most shows were just family comedies or sitcoms or whatever. They weren't. Or they were shows like The Fugitive, where it was much more serious.
Yeah. But this, I mean, again, like, similarly to The Fugitive, it's a reset at the end of every episode.
Right.
Which, again, it's fine. This episode, he finds her Ankh necklace at the end and goes, "I'll never forget you." Dun, dun, dun. Freeze frame, the end. Okay. Right. Moving on. So, the final episode of this episode is Running with the Pack. It is Guy Magar's first directorial debut on the show. It is Craig Tepper's, I think, second at least. His second writing credit on the show. And you want to talk about an episode I had no fucking idea what was going on.
Yeah. So basically this episode, like he's working at a diner now and to make ends meet.
Randomly, sure.
Yeah, I guess. And how long has he been here? Because these people are like, well, you can't leave us yet. You blah, 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 blah. But it seems like he's been working there for a while, but whatever. He's working at this diner, agrees to not leave. Then the bounty hunter comes, and the people who own the diner just like him so much that they lie to the bounty hunter and say that he's not there.
But then they ask him why he is doing what he's doing.
Right. And he says that he's on the run for murder, but they still trust him. And then the diner gets attacked by a weird-ass gang. And basically it turns into the first segment of Creepshow 2.
Well, and some of the people in the gang are really well-known character actors. You've got, Jay Acavone, who has been in a ton of things. And I'm sure I just butchered his name. You also have my favorite, Kevin Gage, who played one of Chrome Skull's final victims in the first Chrome Skull film, which is a great movie if you've never seen it. I don't believe it's called Chrome Skull, though. I think it's called...
No, there's a movie called Laid to Rest, I think.
Well, but the second one is called Chrome Skull? Mm-hmm. Yeah. The first one is Laid to Rest, yeah, but he's in that movie. You got Michelangelo Kowalski. I mean, you've got a lot of really good character actors, some interesting character actors doing some very...
Oh, and they play it up.
Oh, they go for it. I mean, they make some very... Let me put it this way. They definitely make some interesting decisions, and they stick to them.
Like, these people are psychos, basically. This gang of, like, motorcycle hoodlums that they're supposed to be are psycho people.
Yeah.
Like, they come in with shotguns. They in one point, they're dunking Eric's head repeatedly in a sink, basically trying to drown him. Which, speaking of drowning, the old lady, that the wife of the diner, has a great line, and where one of the gang members says, "Oh, do I remind you of your kid or whatever?" And she's like, "I don't have a kid, or if I had a kid like you, I'd drown it." And I was like, oh.
Yeah, no, the back and forth in this episode is probably the best that we've seen.
And somehow that guy survives what was clearly a shotgun blast to the face, but then, oh no, it was just a shoulder shot.
Yeah. And again, like, the character actors in this are great, which I kind of think overpowers everything else. I mean, I even forgot to mention Julia Campbell, who plays the Trinity Killer, John Lithgow's wife in the 4th season of Dexter. She plays this kind of abused wife, and she's kind of given free reign to do some weird things in this episode as kind of the sole female of the biker gang.
Right. And I liked this episode, even though it's
hard to follow.
It's hard to follow. It gets, and this is where we get into a lot of the editing problems. Last probably 10 minutes of this episode is just full on a fight scene between Eric and the whole gang, which is probably like 5-6 people.
Yeah,
it's a lot of people. And
slow-mo werewolf.
Don't see for being in slow-mo, you don't see shit.
No, it's very muddled and just kind of crowded, and the blocking is all off, and the lighting isn't great either. So it's, and look, like, I get it. Like, the old joke is obviously, how do you hide bad CGI? Put it at night. But this isn't bad CGI. This is pretty competent, like, full
practical effects, yeah.
Yeah, full suit practical effects. So you can actually, like, kind of let it be well lit and not have to shoot it in 30 frames a second or whatever lowered frame rate they're shooting it at. And if you did that, maybe you'd be able to tell what the hell is going on.
Right.
And look, the crazy thing is, like, the fact that every director we've had has done the same thing. Guy Magar does the exact same thing that everyone else has done. It's nobody is doing anything different. It's super weird. And look, Guy Magar has directed things. I mean, it's not like he hasn't directed actual films. I mean, holy shit, that's what I don't get.
Well, and that's what I want to know. Like, I don't know as far as the creative control that went into this show. It was created by Frank Lupo, and his name is at front and center every single episode.
Yeah, you better not forget who made this show.
Exactly. So I'm wondering if he had what he had in mind was specific, and it was a specific formula that he wanted to happen in every show. So every director and writer that he hired was like, look, you have to write whatever write a story, but it has to fall in with these requirements.
Right.
Because my main catch with this is Chuck Connors and Werewolf budget, and everything else kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's kind of bizarre.
But I'm not sure. I'm merely speculating.
I mean, I think it's a pretty good assumption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Frank Lupo's name, like, that is, for somebody who, I mean, has he directed or written any of them?
He wrote the first and the second episode.
The first and the second one, yeah. Okay.
Which, by the way, second episode, not... the second episode's probably the worst episode of these 7.
Of these 7, yeah, absolutely. I would agree with that. It's boring. It's not particularly interestingly shot. Like, everything about it is just very basic and boring. And I think Frank Lupo had a specific vision for this series, and being television directors and writers, they kind of just had to deal with it.
Well, and again, I mean, he did create other shows like The A-Team, so it's like, how to block out action and actually competently write a scene. So I think I'm sure some of this does come back to the budgetary restraints of the show.
Mm-hmm.
Weeks to come, the road Eric Cord must travel is a lonely one peopled by demons. The demon he pursues, Skorzeny, a monster who must die to end Eric's curse. The demon inside him, the bloodlust that threatens to turn Eric into a killer out of control. And the demons that plague humanity, fear, greed, guilt, and revenge. But there are other travelers on this road that renew Eric's courage and hope. The strength of friendship, the love of a family, the warmth of a young girl's heart, priceless and grasped for only an instant before they slip away. But they all remain allies in Eric's battle with evil, the evil around him and the evil within, whose name is Werewolf.
On the next episode of the One Season Show, what are we going to be talking about, Jess? What episodes?
We'll be talking about episodes 9 through 15, breaking the season of Werewolf into 4 parts.
So the episode 11 and 12, which we will be watching and talking about in the next episode, is the first 2-parter of the show.
Ooh. So they were like, shit, we needed more time for this specific episode.
Yeah, I'm sure, which means it will be a story-heavy episode.
Which I'm fine with. Honestly, yeah. If it's an interesting story, and I would like to see them do more 2-parters because of the reasons that we've talked about, and just that it would be nice to elaborate more than just seeing the same thing over and over.
Agreed. So until then, where can people find you, Jess?
You can find me on Twitter at WriterJessByard, and you can find me on this podcast as well as many episodes of your podcast, The Culture Cast, and sometimes I'm on the projection booth as well.
It's always nice when I don't have to plug my own podcast.
Right?
I do appreciate that. You can find me on Chronicles from the Crypt, where I talk about Tales from the Crypt, and the Kolchak Tapes, where I talk about Kolchak the Night Stalker, and Dreams for Sale, which is a Twilight Zone 1985 podcast. I'm not the only one on any of those podcasts. I'm not taking credit for it. I'm just saying that I am on there as well. You can head on over to oneseasonshow.com, where you can find out more about this show. We are part of the We Made This Podcast network, which you can follow at We Made This Pod on Twitter. We have a lot of great podcasts on there, an X-Files podcast, a music podcast. Go on there if you're looking for podcasts. You want to support our network that we're on. They've got everything and then some things you probably couldn't have even thought about, and yet here they are. You can follow me on Twitter at casualty_Chris, and the podcast on Twitter at One Season Show. Big thanks as always to Curtain Peepers for Who's Lovin' Me, which is the music for our show, and we'll catch you in the next episode.